Wana Chaka Fala. Now published named Borobudur. There are 160 panels on the bas-reliefs of Borobudur which are now not exposed to the language and philosophy that underlie them. This is not from India. On the relief figure, there are 12 words, Svarga, and one of the other words is Mahachakya, to panel number 43 on the bas-relief of Borobudur. You can see the building. Clearly this is the form of a building in the archipelago. The inscription on the edge of the frame is interpreted by the Borobudur Conservation Center as reading Mahetsakya. Different transliterations prove that the language in the Borobudur text is not Sanskrit. But this language underlies the Sanskrit ancestral language of Indonesia, not from India. While the Germans took the symbol, Su Astika, from a more advanced nation in the past, that nation is the Kaka, Sakya, Shitya, Aryan people of our ancestors, the Indonesian archipelago. The symbol, Su Astika, is now stored in Bali. In the dictionary, the Petersburg Dictionary, Otto Boetlink and Rudolf Roth, 1879-1889 and St. Petersburg Great Street Dictionary 1855-1875, is named several variations. The text literacy of the word is written with various variants, among others. Maheshakya, Mahendranagari, Mahendrayajan, Maheshabandhu. The words which have a similar meaning to Maheshakya, either from Sanskrit or from German are, a great man. Other similar words, Maheshakya, Maheshvarasiddhanta, Mahibrit, Mahidra, Maheshakya, Mahahava, Mahavanij, Maheshudi. Inside the Harvard Kyoto word transliteration, Mahetsakya becomes Mahezakya. In Veldua's transcription word, Mahe gets the affix Sakya. Modern ITRANS versions are Maheshakya, Mayasakya. In IPA font, Mek. The word Mahe means big or a great nation, and the word Sakya is the Kaka tribe of the Indonesian archipelago. Hundreds of inscriptions with the number of Saka years are scattered here, proving this is the country of Saka, Kakya. Maheshakya is one of the words that is absorbed into Sanskrit, is also used in books such as the Upanishads, Veda. Devanagari version of Maheshakya is written in IAST transliteration with the diacritic sign of this word written, Mahesakya. Maheshakya. Mahesakya is a man of great manliness, in the Sanskrit word with the translation being a man of great nobility. The great wise man was the leader of the nation in the advanced civilization of the Indonesian archipelago, the Kaka people, the great Kaka nation, Mahetsakya. Kakya is the Kaka, Saka, Aryan of our ancestors. Another literary text written in the bas-relief, Svarga, is different from the Nirvana taught by the great Supreme in India. So, not because of construction considerations that will collapse, so that the relief at the base is closed. The original teaching of the archipelago, Dharma, Western historians call Dharmak, who brought our ancestors named Svarnadvipa Dharmakirti as well as Saraputra to mainland India. After Dapunta Hyang from Sumatra, the Kaka, Sakya figures who carried the Pulsafal left the archipelago, spread to 3/4 of the earth and grew in India into 3 religions there. Muarataka's site, where once stood the center for learning the main basic philosophy of Dharma, which is still depicted in Borobudur and perfectly preserved in Bali. So all sites are also original teachings. In Nusantara is not based on one of the 2 Indian religions. But what is still depicted on the Borobudur site is also recorded in the original teachings of the archipelago, is what underlies the growth of the 3 religions there, Dharma, Dharmak, Nusantara, the initial philosophy of monotheism, Hyang Widi Tunggal. Study on the caloric inscription. Let us review the name of the Sailendra dynasty on the caloric inscription. In the above description, the name, Sailendragurubis, Sailendrawansadalaksia, Sailendra Rajagurub is inscribed on the caloric inscription. Caloric inscription. Number. D.44 at the National Museum, Jakarta. Found near Lumbung Temple, Caloric Village, to the north of the Prambanan Temple Complex, Central Java. Written in Pranagari script, using Sanskrit. Broadly speaking, the content is about the erection of a sacred building for Manjusri on the orders of King Indra, who has the title Sri Sangramadananjaya. In the mainstream literature data available so far are. The inscription mentions the construction of a sacred Buddhist building for Manjusri's house. We pay attention to the interpretation that so far mentions the Buddhist building. Is this true based on Buddhism? Who is the Buddhist missionary figure here? First, where the teachings of the Buddha who was born in India with the Prambanan site built. This is a clarification for us to study academically. Interpreted that a statue containing the wisdom of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, Trinity same as Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshvara. The construction of this sacred building was ordered by King Indra, honored in his official name Sri Sangramadhananjaya. Reference to Hindu deities in this Buddhist temple denotes Tantrayana, Vajrayana Buddhism. The temple dedicated to Manjusri is identified as Siwu Kandi, which is located not far to the north from the Prambanan temple. Today the inscription is displayed at the National Museum of Indonesia, Jakarta, with an inventory number No. D.44. The existing literature data is. The caloric inscription is an inscription dated 704 Saka, written in Sanskrit with the Pranagari script, found near the temple granary in Caloric village located not far north from Prambanan Kandi, Central Java, Indonesia. The writings on the inscription were found in poor condition. With some parts that are unclear and illegible, some historians can only translate the main information of the inscriptions. The inscription mentions the construction of a sacred Buddha building to house the Manjusri statue containing the Buddha's wisdom, Dharma, and Sangha. The clarification. 3 words Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. This is not true to consider the concept of the Trinity. Because the 3 words Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha have meanings that are not the same as the concept of the Trinity. Who considers Trinity same as Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshvara? The construction of this sacred building was ordered by King Indra, honored in his official name Sri Sangramadhananjaya. This reference to Hindu deities in Buddhist temples signifies the Tantrayana, Vajrayana influence of Buddhism. Is this mainstream interpretation true? Let's understand about Tantrayana Vajrayana, who is a figure from Tibet who studied in the archipelago and developed it there. We will understand that Tantrayana Vajrayana is one of the original Dharmic teachings that existed in the archipelago, earlier Indonesia. Let's see. Where is this teaching from? Arya are the Kaka people of the archipelago. Written on the bas-relief of Wana Kaka Phala, Borobudur with the literary text of the word Mahachakya, nation Kakya, Sakya, Saka, Aryan the Great, called Shaitya by European historians. The Kaka already existed far earlier than 78 AD from the time of conquering King Salivahana of India. This 78 AD figure is misinterpreted to calculate the beginning of the Saka year on the inscription. In the early Pra-Srivijaya era the Kadri was led by the name Kandra Nago. There is a tribe apart from the main Soko. From this the son Tumenging has a daughter who is married to a clever named Perpatia, then has a daughter in the family system, matrilineal, named Malay, Muni, Jambik and the youngest named Pito, or Dwi Pito. During the Aditya Warman era, the period after the colonization, Chola, was formed as tribalism. On the male side it was called Dachuik Pata, to become the Kaniago tribe. On the wife's side it was called Badi Kaniago, and her 4 younger sisters became the name of the tribe. 1. Malay becomes Malayu. 2. Muni becomes Munaliang. 3. Pito becomes Pitopang. 4. Jambak, fixed. When the union with the holy city and the center of the puja underwent an attack by Kola Mandala led by Kaladewa attacking the Gasab area, Siak and the family of the Puti Inda Jelito family were rescued to Sebayong, Selan, Sigingi by Dadu Sati, now in the form of a sultanate. The people who live are actually the tribe whose initial name was Manda Ialang. Mandala, or the form of government of the people who lost their leadership or the top of their customs because they lived in Manda Ialang, turned into Manda Leong, which is read and spoken sometimes becomes Manda Iliong, Manda Iliong, Manda Ilang. The Kadachuan region, which is the holy city, ruled by Kandra Nago, is called Naghori. In Nagori, Nagari, the mother tongue of the international language at that time, Sanskrit, with a center of poetry, Mongtakui, and the center of government on the hill, Katanka, in the area of its territory at a radius of 75 kilometers, which is now called Koto, using numbers, namely 13 Kodo, Kampar, 5 Kodo, Tapung 6 Kodo, Subayong 12 Kodo, Chok 9, Base 6 Kodo, Galugu 6 Kodo, Rokan 4 Kodo, Rajo 5 Silo, Andiko 44. There is an area in the Pra-Srivijaya era before 78 AD from the center of the puja in the holy city, Mongtakui, is now published as the site of Muaratakas. Its location, if currently driving 77 kilometers or 1.53 hours through the Kwak area. The literacy of two words, Arya and Tantra, recorded as one word which is now called the area, Aliantan. The road from Aliantan to Sulagi Hill still has Goa Garuda and Goa Hanuman, where the Aryans do contemplation, samadhi, to learn Tantra. This is where in the Aliantan area the Aryans with the Tantric learning method make their humans more capable than ordinary people. Because the secret knowledge called Tantra was later brought by Atisha students to Tibet to become the Tantrayana, Vajrayana school of Mahayana Buddhism. In Aliantan there is a Raja Vatsal, Vanua named Dachuak Suri Maharajadaraja Indo, local people Aliantan call briefly Daduk Majindo. This name in pre-Islamic times before it was called Sriwijaya was Datuk Maharajadaraja Indo. Descendants of the Kandra Naga lineage breed. Aliantan is the main gateway to the northern part of the holy city, starting from Siak Hulu, mirroring Pantai Sermon approximately 100 kilometers to enter the center of Kadachuan city. You have to pass the road which is now called Timban Tulong. This name was spread because in the past on either side there is a pile of human bones. The commander-in-chief of the road and gate was named Shanghyang Dachuak Penglimo Buyong Amban, who was known to be ferocious and confiscated his belongings against immigrants with bad intentions who were about to enter the holy city, and had to pass through the road which is now called Pile of Bones. The commander-in-chief of Aliantan in the kingdom, Suri Maharajadaraja Indo, has two figures. 1. Shanghyang Dachuak Penglimo Kampuo or called the commander of Kampo. 2. Shanghyang Dachuak Penglimo Sikuban, from his father's breed who was in the center of the Kadri named Shanghyang Dachuak Maharajadaraja Sikuban, and the names of his sons were called Tantra. Word text literacy. Tantra, derived from the word tan, means describing the supernatural power, power of God, or it can be interpreted as the essence, or origin of the teachings, this teaching which later developed in India. Also what was brought later by Atisha students to Tibet became the Tantrayana, Vajrayana Mahayana school of Buddhism. When there was a war between the people Khan Arya against the Dravidians of the native Indians, Sadashiva was born. The meaning, he who is always absorbed in consciousness, came to be known as Shiva. The greatest contribution of the Aryans to civilization was the introduction of the concept of Dharma. This is the concept of the ancestral teachings of the archipelago and a collection of question and answer books about secret science, known as Tantra Shastra. The principles of Tantra are found in Nigama, while their practices are in the book Religion. There are 64 books containing Tantrayana, Maha Nirvana Tantra, Kalarnawa Tantra, Bidana Tantra, Yoganirdeya Tantra. The ancient books are lost and partly incomprehensible because they are written in secret writings to keep tantric secrecy to those who are common. Panka Ma, 5M, R. Madhya, Mamsa, Matsya, Mudras, and Maithuna. The teaching is more directed to the concept of Karma Marga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Marga, the practice of Tantrayana, namely, So, Kama, and Pansaka, are known as Panka Ma, or Malama, is often mistaken for a bad Malimo. 1. Mada, Madhya, middle, which means more to the middle way, not too much or less, not too hard or weak, which is then interpreted as bad to be drunk or unconscious. 2. Mamsa, mam equals me, sa equals pertiwi, land, which means more to extinguish lust and desire, turning off all senses, which is then misinterpreted to kill animals, eat meat and drink blood. 3. Matsya, comfortable, flexible, flowing means more flexibility in movement, feeling empathy and sympathy, not being rigid, in samadhi, yoga, called pranayama, which aims to make the mind calm and easy to meditate, which is then interpreted as bad, into eating poisonous mackerel. 4. Mudra Bayu. Determination. Soul is a deep soul, full of determination, the implementation of actions and proofs, which are then interpreted as bad as doing hand gestures and dancing until tired. 5. Maithuna. Unity. Destroying, namely unifying the mind to the cosmic, destroying the mind, sinking into nothingness, achieving freedom of mind, which is then mistakenly interpreted as mass copulation. Furthermore, Tantrayana influenced the teachings of Buddhism, the Mahayana school, which focuses on helping each other among its followers in achieving spiritual freedom, namely, nirvana, in the Mahayana school of Buddhism. In Dharmic original, it is called Svarga. The melted Tantrayana in Mahayana is called Vajrayana Tantra, or Mahayana Tantra. The meaning is that tantric teachings originated in the archipelago, not India, Tibet. The secret science, known as Tantrayana, is what Aditya Warman learned to fight against the invaders who had wanted to seize the holy city, since the 9th century AD, with its center of worship, Mongtakui, in the era after Srivijaya, could only be controlled by King Chola Mandala. At the same time as the return of the student from Tibet, Atisha Dipamkara Surjanana, to his country brought Tantra to become Tantrayana, Vajrayana school of Mahayana Buddhism. Atisa Dipamkara Shranyana is the original name. Another name for Otish was Dipankorsrigan, a figure of the spread of Mahayana and the second wave of Vajrayana to 11th century Tibet, born from Prabhavati Devi and Srikalian 980 AD. In 1013 AD, Atisha traveled with 125 people sailing across the ocean and storms to an area called Boga, a country which at a certain time, if the sun is directly overhead, produces the effect, without shadow, is an equinox at the site of the Takas estuary, not Palembang, or Sri Lanka. Of the 21 youths who were sent, almost all of them died on the way, and only 2 young men, Rinchen Zongpo and Legshe, had mastered Sanskrit. On their return, the 2 young men told the king that it was Atisha who taught in Tibet. Atisa Dipamkara Shranyana lived for 12 years in the archipelago Svarnadvipa, studied with a professor named Sirlingpa Dharmakirti. Or Svarnadvipa Dharmakirti, returned to his country teaching in Tibet for 3 years and died 1054 in Naitang, Tibet. So, secret science, known as Tantrayana, is part of the concept of Dharma, namely, Dharmic original, the concept of the ancestral teachings of the Indonesian archipelago, which later served as the basis for the birth and development of Hindu, Buddhist and Jaina teachings in India, which until now are perfectly preserved in Bali and depicted in Borobudur. The past originates in Svarnadvipa. Don't turn it over. It was our ancestors who colored 3/4 of the earth, between India's lands. It's that academic fact. History is never lied. It is the interests of writing that make historical records a lie. The temple dedicated to Manjusri is identified as Candi Siwu, which is located not far to the north from the Prambanan temple. Today the inscription is displayed at the National Museum of Indonesia, Jakarta, with an inventory number No. D.44. In the information above that has been spread so far about the interpretation of Prasasti Caloric, there are key words, including Manjusri, Tantrayana, Vajrayana, Sangha, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshvara, Buddha, Dharma. These words exist in Hindu and Buddhist teachings. In the explanation above there is a disguise to confirm whether the name of a person who in this case is a Sailendra dynasty as stated, namely, Sailendragurubas, Sailendrawansadalaksia, Sailendra Rajagurubas. On the caloric inscription by historians it is not clear that the religion is Hindu or Buddhist. The mention of the words above that are Sumir or vague tends to refer to Buddhism. Here the author will review from the start of Indian philosophy, the history of Hinduism and Buddhism, as well as the use and meaning of these words and their relation to the caloric inscription. And we will be able to conclude that the name stated on the inscription actually based on what teaching. As a study material to be able to conclude whether the Sailendra dynasty listed on the caloric inscription is a religion, let us first know about the philosophical teachings of Hinduism and Buddhism, their differences and similarities. We first start by understanding the origins of Sanskrit. Sanskrit. Its position in South and Southeast Asian culture is similar to that of Latin and Greek in Europe. Sanskrit developed into many modern languages on the Indian subcontinent. This language appears in its pre-classical form as Vedic. What is contained in the Rigveda scriptures is the oldest and most archaic phase. This text is dated to about 1700 BC, and Vedic Sanskrit is the oldest known Indo-Aryan language and one of the oldest members of the Indo-European family of languages. The language, Sanskrit, is the language of the nation of the archipelago. Indonesia was advanced earlier, not a language, and comes from India, today. Misunderstanding and colonialist propaganda has made this nation seem to be only a nation of importers of culture and language of other nations. When colonizing, this country was named the Dutch East Indies, with just one letter, H, lost. Perfect, said India it be considered the source of the culture and language of the archipelago. And we are silent. Pay attention to the language, Sanskrit, has been around for a long time in the archipelago since thousands of years ago was used by our ancestors. The literacy of the word, language, Bhasa, itself comes from the Sanskrit language meaning, speaking accent. This is native to our language. European research on Sanskrit was initiated by Heinrich Roth, 1620–1668, Johann Ernst Henkselden, 1681–1731. Sir William Jones, addressing the Asiatic Society of Bengal in Calcutta, February 2, 1786, said, Sanskrit, however ancient, has a striking structure. More perfect than Greek, broader than Latin, more refined and cultured than the two, but has a closer connection to both. Both in the form of the root of the verb and in the form of grammar. Which could not have happened by chance. So closely related, that no linguist can. Researching all three, without believing that they came from the same source, which probably didn't exist. Came from the same source, which probably doesn't exist anymore. Last words. William Jones, this proves the source of Sanskrit. It's not where he is lecturing. India. In Indonesian today there are about 800 words from Sanskrit, including Cinta, love, religion, agama, space, antariksa, Aka, statue, danger, Baya, vessel, Bahana, Bidadari, Vidyadari, Buddha, Buddha, someone who is conscious. These words are absorbed directly from the original language, which are absorbed from the Javanese language used as the formation of new words called neologism. Ing Bazastrane Old Javanese less than 50%. From that, Bawarnane, originally a Sanskrit base. The current, mainstream, account of Sanskrit is the publication of the name, Panini, then Devanagari, the older Brahmin language, Aramaic. That's the source of the Sanskrit. Is it true? Panini, the Pakistani first wrote about the Sanskrit grammar entitled Astadhyayi, a grammar book of Sanskrit. His work contains 3,959 Sanskrit laws written in the 5th century BC. Devanagari script, from the Sanskrit, city of gods. This script arises from the script, Brahmi, and came into use in the 11th century. Brahmi. This script is written from left to right. According to the hypothesis, this script based in the letter, Aramaya, is used. King Asoka 270 BC 232 BC. Alphabet language. Aramaic is used by the people of Aramaic, who lived in the area around Mesopotamia, Syria. Around the 10th century BC, the Achaemenid Empire 331 BC, Ancient Aramaic 500 BC, changed to Imperial Aramaic, imperial language. Pay attention to everything that is considered the oldest source of the alphabet language is 500 BC, while in the archipelago long before that year there had been a place to study science, at the level of the university center, including the Sanskrit language. A university center level learning place called Dharma Phala in Svarnadvipa was built before Nalanda, in Bihar, India 427 AD. Dharmapala figures from 670 to 580 BC born in Svarnadvipa are students of Dharmadasa, Dharmakirti teachers and others who are pioneers of Dharma, Dhamma, teachings in India. So, the language, Sanskrit, is the native language of the archipelago, learned and used by our ancestors to spread to 3/4 of the earth along with the spread of the philosophy of Dharma, Dhamma, teachings, which underlie the growth of 3 major religions in India. We are the ones who color India. Marked with the language, Sanskrit, and the main basic philosophy, Dharma or Dhamma. Continues to Section 7. By Santo Saba.